Hi, this is Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and I am honored to be joined by Dr. Anthony Levatino, who is a former abortion provider, and we are here in the place where 40 Days for Life first began back in 2004, before it went national in 2007. This is the now closed Planned Parenthood abortion facility in Bryan, Texas, which is being featured in the movie UNPLANNED. Dr. Levatino, you have given your testimony before Congress.
Maybe that size is about the size of a large plum. Can't see it, but you pretty good idea you've got it if you've got your instrument around something and your fingers are spread about as far as they go. You know you did it right if you crush down on the instrument and white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains.
You've done so much to bring awareness to the barbaric nature of this surgery. What are some of the most powerful things from your own journey of being an abortion provider to being a pro-life advocate where you've seen somebody actually change their mind?
You know, I've known a lot of physicians who have changed their mind. Most of them certainly didn't go through what my wife and I went through and what we had to go through, what I had to go through to change my mind.
It was a typical summer day, June 23rd, and Tony was on call that day, but it was quiet. At 7:25 that evening, we heard the screech of brakes out in front of our house and ran out, and Heather had been struck by a car. Tony rushed over and started doing CPR, and an ambulance was called, and they continued to try to resuscitate her in the ambulance, but she was dead on arrival. And that's something you never recover from.
You know, what do you do after a disaster? You know, you take a couple of weeks off and you go back to your life. And I showed up at OR number 9 at Albany Medical Center just like I had over 100 times before to do one of these late-term D&Es. And I wasn't thinking of this as anything special. I obviously had other things on my mind. This was just routine. This was my work. And there's a device called the Sofer clamp, which was actually in the movie. And you put that clamp inside and you rip out an arm or a leg. And I'd done it well over 100 times. It was routine. But I literally stared at that limb sitting in the clamp. When you do a D&E abortion, you have to basically stack parts up on the side of the table, and when you're done, it's gruesome, but it's absolutely true. You essentially have to reassemble the baby to make sure you got everything. You have to make sure you got 2 arms, 2 legs, and all the pieces, because if you don't, your patient's going to come back infected, bleeding, or dead. So I finished that abortion, and I know that it sounds strange to people, but after all those years, after 1,200 abortions, after over 100 late-term abortions, I really looked at that pile of body parts on the side of the table. And for the first time in my life, I didn't see her wonderful right to choose, and I didn't see what a great doctor I was helping her with her problem, and I didn't even see the $800 cash it just made in 15 minutes. All I could see was somebody's son or daughter. And in that moment, it hit me all at once. A lot like what Abby describes. It hit me so hard, and it was like I had just buried my daughter, and here someone came to me and offered me money to kill their son or daughter, and I said yes.
And it's the power of people like you and these former, Abby was the 26th out of 186 abortion workers and doctors who have come to 40 Days for Life, who had a change of heart. We have a lot just quit because they hate us, but we have a lot that actually have a change of heart, and that's the 186. I'm always very grateful. I have a heart for the former workers because I've shared many times, I saw Carol Everett speak when I was in the 8th grade. That really opened up my world. When you hear Carol Everett at 48, I'm sure it impacts you, but I heard her when I was in the 8th grade. And then I heard you my sophomore year, and you were the first former abortion doctor that I ever heard give their testimony. It was in Longview, Texas, and I will never forget you bringing those instruments. And I was 16 years old. You don't know anything at 16. I was pro-life, but that did it for me. I had a whole new conviction, and that can't happen unless you have the courage to share your story. And so I want to thank you for that, and for all those workers that do have a change of heart. Unplanned is, it's depicted in this building. Chuck and Carrie, Chuck Konzelman and Carrie Solomon, they came here 4 years ago and filmed and took pictures and then rebuilt this office for the movie. And I remember they stood in this room, and we had just acquired the building. And they looked around and they were tearing up, and they said, "This is Auschwitz, where we are. This is Auschwitz." And I think you see their conviction in the movie. You are in the movie. You're now, you're now an actor of sorts. Dr. Levatino plays the abortionist who does the abortion in this room where it actually happened, where we're standing, that Abby witnesses and, praise God, had a change of heart. Very difficult scene to watch. It's the reason why the movie was rated R. There is no nudity or profanity in Unplanned. There is violence because there is abortion. Absolutely. And abortion's violent. And so talk about that experience that you had to play your former self.
I don't remember if it was Chuck or Carrie. I think it was Carrie Solomon who called me out of a clear blue sky. Told me, I'd heard that I'd read the book, of course, and I'd never met Abby Johnson in person, but I'd read the book. I read her book, and it was wonderful. Mm-hmm. And then they told me, and I knew that the project had been kind of in the works for a while, but he told me that they were actually shooting it, and he asked me if I would appear in the movie as the abortionist. And I was like, "Well, gee, Mr. Solomon, I have absolutely no acting experience." And he said, "Don't worry, I think you'll be fine. We really want you in the movie," which was just wonderful. We traveled to Stillwater, Oklahoma, my wife and I, and it's so funny, I'm not a movie person. I'm not a movie star. It's funny that my family's giving me endless guff about how they want my autograph now.
Definitely, yeah.
But anyway, and you see your name up on a trailer, and you go through makeup, and you go through wardrobe, and you end up on the set. And everybody was absolutely wonderful. It was an incredible experience for us. They couldn't take good enough care of you. There were a husband and wife ministry team on that set praying constantly, and they were there for you. It was something, the whole production was like that. And it was funny, that scene, of course, you see in the film is fairly short, but it took 7 hours to get the scene shot, because they do it from multiple angles, and we changed some lines, and I was working with the special effects people on getting the look right, and it was just terrific. And I remember thinking the first stretch was 3 hours long, and I thought, "Oh, my poor wife, she's probably going to get bored." Oh, no. Carrie had put her in the director's seat. She had the headphones on, the whole thing. She was having a blast. So it was a great, great, great experience, and I was really honored to do it. I've seen the movie as you have. It's a powerful movie. It's a medically accurate movie. This movie is going to create a firestorm. Because, people have asked about it, and I said, something, years and years and years ago, child labor ended because somebody got a camera into those factories and showed what was going on. Abortion is not going to end until people see what abortion is, and this movie goes a long way toward doing that.
Well, there's so many wonderful people out there who have been involved in the pro-life movement longer than I've been alive. And I've heard many of them say, abortion needs to be on television, abortion needs to be on a movie, and now it's going to be. It's going to be on a movie. They show a chemical abortion. They show the abortion that you play, the doctor that does it. It's in this room, and it's extremely powerful. And I've screened this movie for people. You can hear a pin drop. It's extremely powerful. And people who are pro-life need to see it, and people that support abortion need to see it. I feel that the people who support abortion will see it and will have their first inclination that maybe they shouldn't support abortion. But the pro-life people that see it, they'll have an inclination that abortion will end, because it is that powerful. And you mentioned it's accurate. You always have to say the movie is accurate. It follows the book very closely, but from the medical standpoint, it's accurate.
What you see is what abortion is. That's what it is, and that's what it looks like, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah, well, Chuck and Carrie did a great job doing it, and so did Abby, putting herself out there. And her story and her courage. We have a lot of, we've had 800,000 volunteers in 56 different countries, and all of them have the same thing in common, where they've doubted. They've thought, this is just a waste of time.
Yep.
Can you speak to that? How do we keep going in this work?
If a woman sees her baby on an ultrasound, there's better than an 80% chance she will not abort her baby. If the dad sees a baby on an ultrasound, there's better than a 90% chance that she will not abort her baby. A woman appears at a clinic and there are people standing around, then that witness is powerful. The man who got us started in pro-life, a dear friend named Dennis Walterding, he's a very bright man, and he said a lot of profound things. One thing he said early on when we were talking, he said, if we had the media behind us, abortion would end in a year. But he was another person, like 40 Days for Life, the dedicated work you guys have done. Every week, out in front of Planned Parenthood, having a presence, being peaceful, singing. He was out one day doing that, and you're right, I can't imagine, I've not done that, but I can imagine how difficult it can be, and that feeling of, am I doing any good? He was out there one day singing. A woman comes up with a baby in a carriage, and he was singing, and she came, they'd never met, but she came up and says, I know your voice. And he introduced himself, and they began talking, and she said, how do you know me? She said, because I was in that clinic, and I was on the table, and I heard you singing. And she said, that was it, I couldn't do it. Got up off the table, went to the front, said, I want my money back, I'm going to buy diapers. And then here was the baby. So my message to everyone who has the courage and faith to do that is keep doing it. That presence is huge, and you have no idea the people you're affecting, but you are. And it's incredible work, and please keep doing it.
Well, thank you, and go see Unplanned. And remember, before you do any of that, pray for these unborn children, pray for their moms and dads, and pray for the doctors who are doing abortions. You never know. They may be standing in a closed abortion facility one day giving their beautiful testimony.